fourth of our.
This meeting is being recorded.
All right. So I'll repeat that. Welcome to all of you. Namaste. This is the fourth of our very special Poets of Color series. Matwaala, as you know, was launched to increase the visibility of South Asian poets in the US. But when BLM erupted about 2 years back, it made us reconsider what the word community is and what solidarity is. And so I think it was Pramila who came up with this brilliant idea of poets of color inspired by people of color. And we initiated the series last year with African American poets, followed by Mexican, Native American, and today we welcome the Caribbean community. We're very excited. We have 4 wonderful women poets today. As you know, Caribbean is a composite of 26 island countries, and we have Keisha-Gaye Anderson representing Jamaica, Danielle Legros Georges representing Haiti, Marianela Medrano, the Dominican Republic, and Bessy Reyna, Cuba. But before we begin, we'd like to remember Loretta Diane Walker, who participated in our African American reading and who is a fellow Texas. She passed yesterday from cancer, and we lost a very, very brilliant and deeply humane poet. So I'd like to share a poem of hers that somehow resonated with me and with Matwaala and the vision of community. That's the cornerstone of what we're attempting to do. And the poem is titled Imagining My Neighbor. Now that the night has fallen like a broken cart, he cups his ear against the old red radio, attempting to tune out the stream of unintelligible street verbiage leaking through the window. Earlier he opened all the blinds, but left the front door closed. Why do we seal off those places flooding the greater light? I imagine in the quiet cottage of his brain, the sepia of this desert city, wind, dirt, grit that scuffs your skin. Wish him gentleness in the shade of shadows. We spoke once. This heat too much, he tells me. His birth city is a place where the Pacific baptizes each morning with softness, the smell of seaweed, each day predictable as a calendar. Today he's a leopard lizard, stalking his oppressor for that which is too much. I shut blinds, retreat from voyeurism. I have no heat or words to offer him. I am a wheel that does not move the cart. So indeed, Loretta, you have moved us and will continue to move many of us with your poems. And we now begin with the evening's program dedicated to a wonderful set of Caribbean poets. We'll introduce each poet, followed by a reading, followed by a question about poetics and craft. So Keisha-Gaye Anderson, welcome. She's a Jamaican-born poet and visual artist based in Brooklyn. She's the author of Everything is Necessary, Gathering the Waters, and A Spell for Living. Her poems, essays, and fiction have been widely published in anthologies and literary journals. In 2018, she was selected as a Brooklyn Public Library Artist in Residence. She was presented with the Poetic Icon Award from her alma mater, Syracuse University, in 2021. She holds an MFA from the City College, CUNY. She works as a senior leader communications for a youth mental health nonprofit. And you can learn more about her at www.keishagaye.inc. So welcome, Keisha. We're really eager to listen to you and celebrate you today. So the mic is yours.
Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here with all of you. Let me know. I think you can hear me okay? Can you? Okay. And it's a bit hot, so. But it is a pleasure to be here with all of you. And yeah, I'm always grateful to share this space. So I think I'm going to start with a poem from my book, Everything is Necessary. And this is me. as a young immigrant. That's actually a drawing of me. But the idea of the book is it's just a way to say the challenge is necessary to turn you into who you are, and you can how you choose to handle them is up to you. So that's sort of the broader message. But I always begin with this poem called Ancestors. That is, I draw from my culture and I'm sustained by that heritage. So here we go. You wanted to look into the dark, didn't you? So don't curse these eyes. We gave them to you and sent you to straighten the bends in these steel tracks that link all of our names, rusted under salt water, buried beneath bundles of cane. Sing songs into candle flame for these bones of mine that now reach through you, stand you into 6 feet of woman. They have not forgotten how to brace against the lash or bend backward for the bembe. Each day we move with you, can't you hear? We are riding the rhythm that beats these words through your center. You beg us to enter, but we never left. We is me, is you, is us all now, together since forever. We laugh and lift your sight towards starshine, seashells, sleeping poetry in every alley and piston corner. We tune your ears to the footfall of predators who stroke their loneliness to the bowline of your lips. You wanted to know, not believe. So see it all here and build a ladder with these visions that lift us up one by one, hand over hand, after birth to under dirt. We listen with you, roll slow up this mountain that needed us to tumble down, break ground, and move things. So look here, kill your fear, open your eyes, pull us back together, and march us home. So and you just gesture for me if I'm going too long, just wave at me because I'm on my phone, I'm on the Zoom. This one is called Kalunga. And I'm gonna challenge everybody to go look up that word. The space is thick with voices, life force, spinning through unknown corridors of your mind. You always feel the happy in a room and the loss. It presses on your chest, the weight of a collapsed star. This is the vocation of your skin, daughter of seers on the indigo road, who seek to temper you in this place, turn you into a hearth for the stolen children. One day you will swim these waters with ease, without drowning or gasping in the riptide of resentment. One morning, you will emerge through the bottom of the ocean and be free. Since, this poem is, I'm sorry, I have a summer cold and there's nothing worse than that because it's hot and I can't breathe, but it's not COVID, I'm okay. This poem is evergreen because it's about empathy and it's something that a lot of us humans, we just can't get it. And I don't know why, but it's called Walking the Circle. How many times can you walk a circle? You are breathless in this flesh, blind and forgetful and partially deaf, pulled by the nose across the globe like cattle, aching from a boundless hunger, which is really only questions. Why I? Why now? Why pain? Why at all? And you are marching toward that carrot straight into the mouths of cannibals who live in your peripheral vision, in the foreground, in the background, in the space between your eyes. They are a mist coating you with a mask that you mistake for your reflection. So when you hear, a man was shot today, a boy was lynched today, a street vendor was bulldozed today, a woman was raped today, a child, you say, that is them. But how many times can you walk a circle and not know that you are the corpse, the strange fruit, the wrinkled street vendor, the woman sawed in two, the child, the child, the child? How many times, how fast can you walk a circle before crashing into yourself? So I am going to now, let me see, I'll just read a few more from, this is my latest book. This is called Spell for Living. This is my artwork, and there is art throughout this book. It's my, go to my website and check it out. But the idea behind this project was agency and courage to make the things we want, and we need to do more of that. This poem is called Classism. Classism is a defunct course of study. The self has a blueprint that creates one mind. The time we spend splintering into multitudes is a circle spinning so fast we cannot see all us selves, the same human with the same ideas, the same family, same dreams, same desire to know what is next, where is evermore. They slice us up, live in layers, count us out, divide, calculate the volume remains the same. The insane love fractions, counting parts is as useless as drawing a line in water. There is no other, just you, me, us, we, and how foolish is man. I'm gonna read one more, let me see, from this book, and then I'll end, I think that'll wrap it up, with one from my very first. Let's see, this one is called Witalawa. Okay, so this is a saying in Jamaica, we're little but Witalawa. That means like we're small but mighty. It's the translation word means. Witalawa, Jamaica, spirits on a sojourn through cracked drums, manacles, and scurvy faces, meeting guardian caciques in the land of mommy's sweet water. And she recognized us all by heart, not by skin. We take the masks of race and fling them up like confetti, mix them up like rice and peas. We melt borders with our bodies to show you one love. All the currents colliding to light up the mind like lightning. This kind of unity, this kind of love is the only reality the world is fighting. And I'm just gonna end, this is my first book, Gathering the Waters. I am going to end with a poem. Hold on. It's right here. It's called Fire Woman. Let me just go to Fire Woman, page 20. All right. Fire Woman. What a way she going, that fat gal, that fire woman. Is who she thinks she is. Market hips rocking like a rum shop before daylight, rolling like a river, swelling to meet sea after the devil and his wife did a fight. Flashing tears from the clouds, streaking the faces of hibiscus, pulling colors through the curtain of the sky. See her there? Rainbow snake charmer, higgler, rude girl, mommy water woman, wind chime laughter shattering the queen's English, morning stride Greenwich Mean Time, a carnival of adornment, from the temple of her ankles to the crown of her head. Red hair, green hair, no hair, she no business. And she black, so till she become a memory and a promise, a double dare, a heckle in the Sunday mass, a line in the sand. Cross it if you think you're bad. A body tolerating uniforms of commerce, all for the sake of a tightly packed barrel, school fees and layaway on satin and sequins designed to hug every living curve. Don't come, don't test, or expect the original holy word to be unsheathed from the holster of her mouth and linger near your ear until just the right time, until you get comfortable, but to use code words, safe slurs, third world, urban, inner city, underprivileged, disadvantaged, developing, primitive, all flimsy arrows that pernick life, sail through stardust template, pre-time goddess unscathed. She is still here, from Clarendon to Brooklyn. Call her Iris, call her Lilith, call her Isis, call her Kali, call her Savvy, but don't call her out her name. She's got no use for girdles and bleaching cream. Coconut milk never killed anybody. Candles and white rum have their place. Everything in her darkness must come to light. She's got stamina for the marathon of creation. Sucks her teeth at your corsets for jubilation. Blinders and wrapped in greenbacks, promises call pensions, and she will wait as long as it takes for her garden to grow and her children to know. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Keisha. Your poems are so inspirational, and I hear this note of courage, asking for courage, asking us to find courage, no matter what. I think that's kind of a little thread that I notice throughout. I wanted to refer to the two poems you sent me, and Crown caught my eye because, and I think it's because our Matwaala poster series was about coiffure. And so I think that's why Crown kind of jumped out at me. And I thought that was a really fresh door into a poem. So I have two questions for you. The poems that you sent me, what I did notice was uh, they seem to rely on syntactic brevity. You have very short sentences that kind of are almost staccato-like, and you set up these tensions with that brevity. So I was wondering what your intention was when you use that technique. And secondly, I wanted to refer to your work with youth, and I was wondering if you use poetry as your healing tool when you work with youth.
Oh, absolutely. So I think to answer your first question, it's a rhythm thing. And I don't think it may not be intentional. It's just like, it's hard. It's like, even the way my drawings look, I can't explain what I did there, but it just like, that's what it felt like to me. And it felt like that was the pace or the cadence, which, I needed to deliver that message. I do like, I am a fan. I love Lucille Clifton's work. She's a great role model, and she wrote brevity was her strength. She wrote very short poems a lot of the time, and it just gets right to the point, and I think I'm trying to do, just want to make it punchy.
I missed the poet's name you mentioned. Did you say
Lucille Clifton?
Lucille, of course, yes.
Yeah,
she delivered a lot in a line. Yeah.
Yeah, yes. And I really tried to get very precise. And with young people, yeah, I mean, in my work, I'm not working directly with young people, but I have worked with a lot of young people. I've taught from high school students to college students, and English courses and poetry, and they always, like, they light up, it's something they can connect to. Especially, when we connect things to hip hop, I mean, it's all poetry. They can really relate, and, it holds their attention, and it's a vehicle for them to express themselves where they feel comfortable.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for sharing, Keisha.
Absolutely.
Our next poet is Danielle Legros Georges. She is a creative and critical writer, translator, and academic whose work sits in the fields of contemporary US poetry, Black and African diasporic poetry and literature, Caribbean, Latin American, and Haitian studies, and literary translation. She is the author of several books of poetry, including Maroon, The Dear Remote Nearness of You, and Island Heart, translations of the poems of 20th century Haitian French poet Ida Faubert. Her poems have been widely published, anthologized, and contained in artistic commissions and collaborations. She was appointed Poet Laureate of Boston in 2014 and served in the role from 2015 through 2019. She's a professor of creative writing at Lesley University. Welcome, Danielle.
Thank you, Pramila, and thank you, Usha, and thank you, Matwaala, for the work that you are doing. I'm really happy to be here this evening with my sister poets of the Caribbean. Still life with orbs. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Between the thing and the name of it is a world. And a world behind this world. There is my mask placed on the table. There is the wooden table and the space beneath it. There is an orange on the floor when it should be on the table, in the yellow basket meant for oranges, but which contains a cat licking one front paw. What do cats know of oranges? What do birds know of water? Unless they plunge their beaks into it, breaking some poor fish's sleep. What do fish know of birds, except the slash of bill, the sudden flash, the stop? A stateless poem. If you are born and you are stateless, if you are born and you are homeless, if your state and home are not yours and yet everything you know, what are you? Who are you? And who am I? Without the dark fields I walk upon, the streets I know, the blue corners I call mine, the ones you call yours. Who am I to call myself citizen and human and free? And who are you to call yourself landed and grounded and free? Who is judge enough? Who native? Who other? And who are we who move so freely without accents of identification, without skin of identification, with all manner of identification, with gold seals of approval, with stamps of good fortune, with the accident of blameless birth? Who are we to be so lucky? Now, in writing this poem, I was thinking about my compatriot Haitians, but also refugees and stateless people all over the world. So keeping everyone in mind. The next poem I will read, I suppose I will open and say that it, with a trigger warning. So there's some cussing, there's some cuss words in this poem. So you are forewarned. A few years back, the US president, not our current president, but his predecessor, became frustrated with lawmakers who wanted to extend protected status to immigrants from places like Haiti, my birth country and my ancestral home, places like El Salvador, certain countries in Africa. And he said, why are we having all of these people from shithole countries come here? So being from such a shithole country, I attempted to understand the president's position. So I thought, let me try to put myself in his mind for a minute, but only for a minute. And so this is the poem that emerged. Sorry, there's a fire engine going by my house. All right. But I'll compete with it. I am the interrupter, hijacking your train of thoughts. Call me maldito, cabron, la bestia, Get on top of me and I'll throw you off after you beg. I'll ride you like a borrowed mule, drive you across the river to sell you up it. Call me coyote, call me wolf, call me whatever the fuck animal you like, missionary, priest, call me Mr. President. I'm all green, a blue gasp. I'm the womb controller, no syringe, no suction. I'll drown you in a teaspoon of potassium chloride. I was born an abomination. At the age of 1, I crawled out of the Congo, dragging my sack full of hands. At the age of 2, I mechanized my scythe. At the age of 3, I wove myself a cape of flies. At the age of 4, I blew the noses off sphinxes and studied the hieroglyphs of your tomb. At the age of 5, I became an angel, cunning, big-eared. At the age of 6, I shot down the moon, then I shot down the sun. I am a nuclear bomb set for noon, the paratext of your nightmare, the translator of your tribulation. I am a constipation, the parasite entering your left ear, the worm nestled in your colon, the sweetest, the sweetest, the sweetest liar, the drone of your inner war, the architect of your gas chamber, the poisoner of your water, the multiplier. I am the radioactive sphincter, the unthinkable, intolerable, bleached ass. Poem for the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. So in addition to Haiti's having been called a shithole country, Haiti is constantly referred to as the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere in mainstream press, particularly in the United States. And I find that moniker, that label, so disturbing. Because often what is not discussed is what has impoverished Haiti. Although the New York Times did that wonderful article recently about the colonial history and the debt, the French debt. But, you know, people don't talk about structural violence and international interference in Haitian affairs and compromised government and so on. So I wrote this poem back in 2010 after the devastating earthquake in Haiti. And it's a wish for Haiti. Poem for the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. Oh, poorest country, this is not your name. You should be called beacon. You should be called flame. Almond and bougainvillea, garden and green mountain, villa and hut, girl with red ribbons in her hair, books under arm, charmed by the light of morning, charcoal cellar and black skirt encircled by dead trees. New country are merchant woman and eager clerk, grandfather at the gate, at the crossroads, with the flashlight, with all in sight. And my last poem is a short one. It's entitled Only. Nature hides the most beautiful design, the norm, the anomaly, the rare, the rarest, which is to say, the only. And aren't we each? Twins, even. Only. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Danielle. I mean, each of your poems just sort of sparkled and touched a very, very deep place in me. There's so much to think about. When as you were reading, I had so many things in my, going on in my head. So here's a question for you. Your poem speaks so sensitively of the politics that marks a country and people. You ask profound questions about what lies beneath our identity markers. How does writing poetry help you to explore memories and philosophies of place and humanity?
That's a great question and a hard one.
I know. And it's okay if you don't have the complete answer, but at least a little bit of what you're thinking about, the memories of place and humanity and how you sort of access those, because there's so much depth in the poems that you read.
Yeah. I mean, I see poetry as a space of inquiry. So as a space of thinking about the deep questions of life, the existential questions, the ontological questions, the epistemological questions, that affect us as human beings, as a race, but also as particular people living in particular times and spaces and coming out of particular identities. And so I think I was the kid who always had a lot of questions, coming out of a Caribbean space and culture in which kids are not supposed to ask questions, right? And so I was considered rude. I was saying, well, why? Why this? Why that? Asking questions about gender and about, politics and class. So poetry has been that space for me. And I don't know that I have all the answers, but I think the questions are really important. And I'm concerned with questions of social justice and justice in general. So I don't know if I've answered the question, but this is kind of what I think about, or I guess what informs how I approach poetry.
Yeah, I think you leave us with something very important, and that is creating that space of inquiry, that things don't have to be answered in completion in a poem, but you can present something and for us to continue the conversation. Like, for example, listening to you, I can write a poem in response to something that really struck me. Yeah, thank you. Usha, can you unmute?
Yeah. Hi. Thank you so much, Danielle. You leave one with a lot of questions, and I think it's very bold poetry to say poetry is a space of inquiry, and one must ask these questions and not shy away from them. And they're so profound. I think they will leave a lot of us thinking about a lot of things after we read your work. It's now my utter pleasure and honor to welcome Marianela, whose work is just a joy and a little pack of, I think of your poems as they're very big and they're very small. They address very small things and then they manage to address very big things. But we'll start with the formal introduction. So you were born and raised in the Dominican Republic. You live now in Connecticut since 1990. You're a poet and a writer of nonfiction and fiction, and you hold a PhD in psychology. Your literary work has appeared in anthologies and magazines in Latin America, Europe, and the United States. And your poetry has been translated into Italian and French. You have various publications and books. And of note is a 2015 TED Talk that you gave at Ursuline College. So with that, I'm waiting to sit back and listen to you, Marianela. And welcome to Matwaala. This all really began with wondering how to get you and a host of you through you. And that's how the Caribbean reading really began.
Thanks. Thank you so much, Usha and Pramila, for this invitation. And I know that it's customary to say that it's an honor, but it is a true honor to be here and to be part of this Caribbean tapestry with poets I admire so much. And especially at this time where we're living through so many trying situations, it is now more than ever that it's essential to lean on poetry to find the light, to keep plowing our way. So thank you for this. So I'll start with, I'm actually going to read all unpublished poems today. I'm going to start with some poems from the book A Shared Grief. And this one is Marilyn's Red Dress. I am not the same from a moment ago. Gone like Marilyn's red dress, sorrow waves exhale from a picture-perfect smile. I am not sure how I have abandoned myself in the darkness of this house. Marilyn comes back in a red swirl, nothing in the soul to bear, nothing under the dress. I stumble over words puzzled in front of her figure, not knowing what to do with her absence. Is it true, Marilyn, that the dead can see us? Can you see me now crying for my beloved ones? Can you see them swirling their colorless garments? Do they have my smile still hanging from their faces? Will they come back in the fluidity of rivers? Would you? Would I? There, where the house collapses, knowing home is something else, I see the faces of all my dead ones. His face running on empty lingers longer. In the emptiness, where words used to be, there is a poem I cannot write. Marilyn, can you see my red swirl curling up to heaven, looking for my father? The next poem is Beginner's Mind. I prostrate gently, yielding my pride. The axe is about to fall. I see the cauldron ready, waiting for my last bone. Would it really set you free? I wake up to emptiness, grief sorrowing to the ceiling. Don't you know it? My death began at the moment when I pulled myself from the source. Yesterday, we kissed and went to bed. A snow day, always a frantic race to love. A singer forever throwing lyrics on the sheets. I walk backwards, retracing, undoing. This love has grown bigger than resentment. It is now the size of an ocean. Let your anger bathe in it. Let us come up fresh like newborns. And from that collection, I'll do one more. Morning Dove. Perch on the pine tree by the window, head tilting towards me, this bird forages the seeds of sorrow. A crop deeper than what I imagine is stocking the kernels from yesterday. I see the throat puffs up, the bill closing. There is no stopping what I must sing. We both survived the desert on brackish spring water. And I'll share some poems from another collection, Devoting. And I guess, I said that was poems about grief, but this is another kind of grief, I guess. So I'll start with an old story. What are these songs and what do they mean? W.E.B. Du Bois. The shame I thought gone rears its head through the only open door. I have forgotten the dark bodies massacred by history. Beaten by the story, I don't know what to say. Is it true that I was always unaware of the dying? Brown and black bodies keep falling in the common grave of denial. Picture muddy waters as the background with a symphony of green in crescendo. Death jumps out of the coffin looking the other way. I dance myself into USA soil. All dressed in white, the vultures scatter magnolia petals on the cement. Each one gestures to slam the door shut, locking me into blindness. Stray dogs are now losing their hair. My rage flings the door open. This one, the door of the poem, the only one I know. Is it useless now in the breaking of time? I think I'll read two more. A shared garment of destiny. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. Martin Luther King Jr. We have come to the end of all journeys. Our garments tattered, stained by the ink of destiny. The blow that has kept my brother's eyes shut is now closing mine too. When my throat travels one way, my brother's meets me right in the middle. There is a bundle at the crossroads, suspiciously unattended. We pass each other without noticing it, too busy with picking dirt from our navels. We stand at the crossway, exhausted, waving a dirty rag, the way we did in the Sunday parades. But now we cry for the cotton candy dissolving in the wind. Lick the sticky corners of our mouths, getting a sudden whiff of fresh blood from the garment we share. And I'll close with a poem, El Corte, and it refers to what is known as the Parsley Massacre, also known as El Corte in Dominican Republic. And the Parsley Massacre refers to a government-sponsored genocide in October 1937 at the direct order of the Dominican dictator Rafael Leonidas Trujillo, who ordered the execution of the Haitian population living in the borderlines with Haiti. Over 20,000 Haitian civilians were killed in approximately 5 days. 20,000 tongues curled up at the bottom of El Masacre awaken. In imperfect rows, they march toward the presidential palace in Santo Domingo. El Generalissimo, afraid of his own shadow, begs the moon for white light. In agony, he powders his face. His biggest fear, the fermentation of skin and bone, the sudden rise of ancestors. 20,000 tongues curled up inside his French-style uniform tear down the palace brick by brick. How do we break the curse? Stop his shadow from casting dummies. Decked in white, his paws go on raping virgins. His rotten sugarcane pokes poison infested holes on the island's feeble body. He litters the earth, litters the earth, litters the earth. Or is it that unfathomable crime fertilizes the conscience of those who have won? Should we make stiff wax miniature figures of El General, minus his sad penis, of course? Should we burn them on the edge of El Masacre? Each woman he raped, each man he slipped to filter hatred in comes up from death. See the beautiful ones surfacing from the bottom of time. Each gets plastered tightly in the heart of another. Come on down, come on down. See the fantasy island where history homes like a tame dragon. We have this habit of carrying our dead with us. They stick to the bottom of our tongues. We sing with them from sunset to sundown. They rise from the bottom of El Masacre. We don't bury our dead. We don't. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Marianela, for those deeply, deeply painful and moving poems. In preparation for the reading today, I savored reading again your poems and rooting for this event. And I was filled with a joy for your craft and voice. And I'd love to reference so much, but the scope of the program cannot allow it. So I want to refer specifically to the concluding segment of the key poems in which you metaphorize the body with poetry, the last segment of the book where you have these key poems. And I'd like you to comment on this idea of the unification or unity or union of poetry and the body. These two geographies, these two physicalities, they intersect and absorb each other in your poems with a passionate avowal of poetry while you do it. So I became very fascinated with that last segment of the book where you bring these two geographies together, the body and poetry. And I've been dying to ask this question. So.
Yeah. What I'm thinking, the geography of body and mind, body and poetry is almost like the geography of Quisqueya, or the island that Haiti and the Dominican Republic share. They are one. They are one. And, if I go back to my indigenous roots, I know that there is no separation, that actually colonization brought in that separation of body and mind for us. And that for me, poetry is the thing that brings me back to roots, back to earth. So it is that communion which allows me to travel between the two, and they're just one. They're just one.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Marianela. It's a great joy to have you today.
Yeah.
Yeah, Marianela, just loved your poems, and especially the last one. It was pretty stunning.
Mm.
And now, I wish this program could go on forever. Last but not the least, we have Bessy Reyna. She's a former opinion columnist from the Hartford Courant and contributor to latinonews.com and Identidad Latina. Her work has been published in literary magazines and anthologies in the US and Latin America. She's the author of the chapbooks The Battlefield of Your Body. Slip of the tongue there. And she remembers, sorry, let me start again. She's the author of the chapbooks The Battlefield of Your Body and She Remembers, and the bilingual poetry book Memoirs of the Unfaithful Lover. Reyna has participated in poetry readings and festivals in the US and Latin America. She's the first poet to be selected as Bolton's Poet Laureate. Among her many honors and awards are the Lifetime Achievement Award from the Connecticut Center for the Book of the Library of Congress in service to the literary community, and was inducted in the Connecticut Immigrant Hall of Fame. She's a graduate of Mount Holyoke College and the University of Connecticut. Welcome, Bessy. Can you unmute? Bessy, can you unmute?
Okay, I just came back.
Good.
Some miracle happened. Some nice ghost was inside my computer and said, she's gonna freak out, I better help. Thank you so much. First of all, like everybody said, this is a great, great honor. And I figure it was Marianela who gave you my name because she's my sister and we love each other and respect each other so much. So thank you so much for allowing me to be part of this wonderful group. My poems today are going to be a little bit nostalgic for Cuba. So the first one is called I Was Born on an Island. I was born on an island, but the sea was too far away to mean anything, except on those rare days when we packed into father's car next to bags, food, and clothes. Going to the beach was a long, surprising ride. Tall trees becoming smaller, green transforming to tan. Then, with the last pull of an invisible cover, the first run to endless blues of ocean and sky, kissing each other shamelessly right in front our eyes. The next poem is called Is This Really Broad Street, Hartford? I was going to work and I saw sugar canes by a bodega in Hartford on Broad Street. So that's where this poem comes from. Is this really Broad Street, Hartford? A stick leaning by the front wall of the bodega. Una caña, a sugar cane. What is she doing here, surrounded by cigarette butts and overripe tropical fruits, which, by the look of them, didn't survive the voyage? All of us converging thousands of miles away from where we started. A distorted reflection staring from small sections of glass not yet covered with flyers for Café Bustelo and laundry detergents on sale. These fruits, this sugar cane, me, what are we doing in this corner of Broad Street? How long will it take before we start conjuring tropical breezes and looking for the tormented clouds of our islands? San Luis Oriente, the small Cuban town where I learned to say caña, to taste it, to want more. Childhood games, pure, delicious, like the sugar cane we stole from the trains loaded at the Central Union. Boy heroes fighting to be the ones to release the canes. I want to grab that sugar cane on Broad Street, dance with her, run backwards. Come, taste me, I hear whispering. Soy tan dulce. Yes, I must taste her again. Esta caña, tan dulce. I want to have her now as I did then. She wants me to unveil her, to make her mine in the middle of the street. I close my lips around the meat while she promises to take me back to be tan dulce, like the afternoons in San Luis, when the only thing that mattered in our world was the sound of the train enticing us. Sígueme, sígueme, sígueme. Follow me, follow me, follow me. Tengo caña tan dulce, tan dulce. The next poem is dedicated to my aunt Esperanza, who she was a spiritist, a spiritualist, santera, and I thought since we are from the Caribbean, I should honor her and that tradition of ours. And this poem is called The Fortune Teller. On a small square table, the white tablecloth glows, illuminating the darkness of the room. A glass of water, a bowl with flowers seem suspended in an emerging cloud. A name embroidered in blue letters, a spirit's name I have yet to forget, the sweet smell of sandalwood incense surrounding me. Sitting across from me, the fortune teller spreads cologne on her neck and bracing herself, opens her arms, shaking her fingers, despojándose. Then turns and softly instructs me, corta las barajas en tres. I do as I am told, and she shuffled my past, present, and future backwards and forwards. In her hands, each card hides a moment no one else knew about until this moment when she unveils it. Chica, tú eres tremenda, she says, smiling at me like an accomplice. Sensing my uneasiness, she quickly establishes her credentials with a detailed account of my house and the people in it. Warning me of hidden dangers I must learn to protect myself from, she sends a message to my girlfriend. And at that moment, I understand why Tia Espe arranged for me to meet this woman. This fortune teller is la mejor de todas. Espe, who waited impatiently so early in this morning from my plane to land, rushed me out of the Miami airport, driving fast through neighborhood streets, insisting that I must have mi consulta before the fortune teller is touched by the sorrows of those who will file in during the day. She helped me so much. Gracias a ella, yo salí de Cuba. Espe describes her last days in Cuba when, following the fortune teller's instructions, she dropped some specially mixed powder next to the immigration officer who, without a moment's hesitation, authorized her departure. When I left Cuba, doctors and nurses were not allowed to go Muchacha, las enfermeras éramos importantes. My Aunt Espe, who looks like me, same eyebrows, who loves me even though I'm unable to hate what she hates or like what she likes. I understand that Espe is sharing with me her most precious possession, a world inhabited by spirits and a religion I am mostly ignorant of, afraid of. As with her own life, she believes this fortune teller has the power to make my future better. Will there be a live pigeon hanging upside down from the entryway? People dressed all in white? I ask. No, it won't be scary. Not like the seance I took you to the last time. Not like that. No, chica, don't be afraid. I'm telling you, this woman, she's the best. La mejor de todas. The fortune teller is speaking slowly now. Puedes hacer una pregunta, una sola pregunta. I hold on to the cards, caressing them, as if I want to change the outcome of a future I do not know, to become friends with the spirit she summoned, the one standing behind me or perhaps next to me, whispering anecdotes about my life with her. The spirit I cannot see, but whom I know now, has been scolding me lovingly, like Tia Espe, who waits for me in the next room. Yes, there is something I want to know. You can ask one last question. Think about it while you cut the cards in half. The fortune teller answers my thought. I visualize the words, think hard, really hard. Is he going to die soon? I ask. Is he? No, he's not going to die soon. Suddenly, her mood changes, and as if my time with her was about to expire, she starts shouting orders at me. He is not going to die soon, but you have to stop smoking and don't drive so fast and never, ever own a gun. Not you, not with your temper, you can't. I smile at the fortune teller, the woman who knows more about me now than my Aunt Espe or my best friend. And when I leave the room and we drive away, I'm still smiling. Sí, tía, tenías razón. Ella es la mejor de todas. I have one short last poem, and it's also a sort of nostalgic poem. And this happened in Hartford, not in Miami. And it's part of the She Remembers, one of my chapbooks. You said that we should show our chapbooks. This is from this one. The last one was from this one. Oops. And tropical lately. The sky looks tropical lately, she says casually, gazing at red and purple streaks framed by the car window. To my left, orange cones, I-84 narrows. I switched lanes and slowed down enough to observe her bare shoulders, long black hair, sandals next to her feet. Her sadness makes me want to conjure an offering, have a wild orchid appear on her lap or between her soft, small breast. I catch a glimmer of the volcanoes and rainforests behind her eyes. Hear waves crash against her homeless heart. She rests her head on the car seat, glancing at clouds that yearn for a place to be. Beautiful, isn't it? Makes you almost homesick, doesn't it? Doesn't it? I whisper. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bessy. There were so many lines that caught my attention, and I was writing some of them on the chat.
Your Ramila, I cannot hear you.
Oh, you cannot?
No.
Can you hear me now?
A little bit.
Can the rest of you hear me?
Loud and
Okay,
clear.
let me do this again. Could you hear me when I was reading?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, it's
can you
better
hear me now? Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you now. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll come closer to the microphone. Yeah, I mean, there were so many beautiful images, and I loved the image of the sugarcane, and it was so sensual, that poem, gorgeous, and also the fortune teller, that poem. You have a beautiful way of conveying a story through emotions, and that's what I also noticed about the poem that you sent me, Memoirs of an Unfaithful Lover. And I was admiring how you were able to develop this whole trajectory of the emotion. So my question to you is, can you describe how place, because you you invoke so many different places in your poems. Can you describe
in memoir, you mean? Memoir? Yeah.
Both memoir as well as in poetry. Can you describe how place informs your exploration of emotions?
Well, that particular poem, it's the title poem of my book also.
Yeah.
It had to do with the death of my first lover.
Mm-hmm.
And she and I traveled a lot. And a lot of the things I have in that poem happened to us. Like, we met the guards at Stonehenge, and he said, you can park in, he allowed us to do all these illegal things, like park in the parking lot of Stonehenge before they were blocking people from going in. He gave us a private tour, and he said, if it doesn't rain, I'll come get you and you can see the sunrise in Stonehenge, which was this amazing thing. Well, it rained. So, things like that came to the poem, different places, like somebody stole her wallet in New York City. And also, I fell in love with somebody else, and that's the truth. So it's a painful poem because she died by herself in Paris. And I always felt that I had hurt her very much by breaking up our relationship. So all of those things are integrated. It's like my journey with her in terms of the places we went to, how much we loved each other, and then how much I hurt her. It's at the end of that poem.
Right. Yeah. So it's almost like the place also evokes the emotion and it brings out the story. I also noticed with the fortune teller, like I think I also come from a world where we're very comfortable with spirits. They are just part of our, whole way of being, both the people who are around us that we can see and also the unseen, our ancestors, we converse with the people who have passed. So in the fortune teller poem, the spirits, are something that you're trying to understand and tap into. So it's very interesting how you juxtapose, the expectation, the anticipation, and then, what actually happens, what she actually says.
Well, my aunt used to take me to the weirdest seances you can ever imagine. So that's why in the poem I say one of them actually, somebody was becoming a priestess, and they had a chicken hanging or a white pigeon hanging from the door, and I had to go under that, and so I tried to integrate things like that in the poem.
Yeah. Oh, that's quite wonderful. Yeah. So I would like to open the floor to the audience, or rather the Zoom, not the floor. And if anybody would like to ask a question now, please feel free to unmute and ask your question. And the poets can also ask of each other if they wish.
We lost our voices.
Well, I just want to say thank you to all of you for bringing us this wealth of emotion and history and inquiry, and all that sort of helps deepen our own sense of our own world. I'm also hoping that my friends Marianela and Keisha and Daniela, who read a lot of sorrowful and grief-laden poems, also have moments in their lives when they do laugh, and I do believe that they do. That would be a very grievous lack in our lives. We are so burdened by the grief of the world these days. It's almost as though it's taking away from us the very ability to appreciate and enjoy the light that actually floods all around us. It's very difficult to do it. But I thank you all for deepening my life, at least momentarily. Thank you.
Thank you for those.
Thank you, Ralph. I think Keisha has something to say.
Oh, I was just going to thank you for those kind words. And yes, I assure you there is a lot of, yes, I have 2 teenagers and they let me hang out with them still. So hanging on to this as long as possible. But, you know, I started writing something the other day. It's not fully written, but it's like my ancestors' tears sometimes come out of my face, you know, it's kind of this idea. But that catharsis helps me feel free by giving voice to maybe people who didn't have a voice, and witnessing all the labor of invisible women is extremely important to me. And it makes me happy, actually. I'm like, yeah, I'm still here. I'm still here. I look like my mothers, you know, and they would be extremely proud of me. So, yeah.
Yeah, so I also want to thank you, Ralph, for bringing that up. And yeah, that's a quest that I often sit with. And I remind myself also that it is through grief that I see the light, that I know there is light and lightness because of the grief. So, you know, historical and contemporary grief are intertwined and they feed each other. And I do, believe me, I do try to leave them and to walk away. But then events like where we are right now in this country bring me right back. But again, I don't, you know, the good thing is that it is through the darkness, through the grief, that actually we know there is light and there is laughter, because we know sorrow, because we know sadness, we get to then laugh. Thank you for bringing that up and for being a good listener.
And I'll jump in and also thank you, Ralph, for your comments and for your attention. And I'll say that I think that the world, well, for me as a poet, the world of my poems is a different world than the world of my life. And there are connections between them, but they're separate things. I remember reading many, many years ago the poems of Lorna Goodison, and then meeting her later. And Lorna is this bubbly, if you know Lorna, this effusive, wonderful, warm person. And some of her poems are fierce as hell. And before I met her, I thought, I was a little terrified. I thought, oh my goodness, I'm gonna meet like this woman who breathes fire. And meeting her was something utterly different. So this just to underscore the notion of, I think they're like, you know, there's the work and then there's the life.
I also wanted to add to what we are discussing, and that is the very act of writing. I think that itself is cathartic. You know, the fact that as poets we're able to express and we're able to work on a poem and revise, and I mean that whole process is itself joyous, you know, life-giving. And I think that lightness that many of you brought up, I think that lightness can be realized just in the act of writing. So I just want to put that out there, since all of you have been working for years on many of your poems and publishing them. So as poets, I guess we take a lot of pleasure in language. So I think it's very important to remember that even when we're writing about things that are very painful. Because a joy does not necessarily have to be, you know, having to, you know, craft a poem that has lightness or that has laughter, but the very act of producing an image, or, you know, asking a serious question and trying to figure it out, I think that itself entices us both in terms of the heart and the mind. So let's have a couple more questions, or if not, we can wrap up. Anyone else? Yeah, Usha.
I just wanted to, you know, I'm reminded, Marianela, this is echoing what you're saying. And, you know, it seems like through the framework of angst and grief and unfairness and war, you know, Matwaala, we found community, and the Poets of Color readings were born from, you know, BLM that just took us all off our feet, you know, by storm 2 years ago. And it helped us again to rediscover who we were. You know, we first launched this platform for South Asian poets, for South Asian poetry, wanting to increase the visibility, wanting to bring more of us. You know, there are always a few celebrity poets, but we thought there were so many more wonderful poets. And then BLM happened, you know, these terrible incidents, and we began to think again, you know, because at the base of it, you know, while we define ourselves by country or gender or ethnicity, you know, we're human first. And that really is what gave birth to us starting the series and saying we found our sisterhood with African Americans, with Caribbean, with Native Americans, with, you know, wherever there was a note of injustice or oppression, it's the same thing everywhere. You know, it might have a different perfume, a different flavor, a different odor, but wherever the human spirit is strangled or suppressed, it unites us. And so it's really been wonderful for us at Matwaala to host this. And, you know, we expanded really, you know, we took wing in a different way. And it brought humanity back into the fold for us as South Asians. You know, it saved us from just being parochial. And again, you know, we rediscovered ourselves as an American poetry organization. You know, what does it mean to be American? What does it mean to be human? What does it mean to be a woman? I mean, it just brought back and it helped us grow in a way. So we're very thankful to all of you, because, you know, all of you have really become mirrors for us, you know, at Matwaala as South Asian poets. You know, we see ourselves in you, and hence this attempt to shake hands and to embrace. So poetry seems to birth through, you know, the birth channels of, I mean, it's the birth channels of pain is where poetry seems to come out as, just seems to come out that way. So, yeah.
So it looks like Usha has said all the important things, as our final words. It is true that all of you are helping Matwaala grow as a very diverse community. We are not just discovering ourselves, but we are opening up the circles of poets even wider, and enlarging our communities, because we are all from so many different places. And it's just wonderful that we are creating that whole world out there, right here in Matwaala. So thank you all very much for taking the time to be here, to read, to share your work. I also want to thank Poets and Writers for their grant to all the poets and to Matwaala. And thank you, audience, for being here and participating. And please inform all of your friends about Matwaala so that they can go to our website, matwaala.com, and look at all the programs we've done so far. And we have wonderful articles by many of the Matwaala poets. We also have an anthology that we have on our website. It's called Maps. Matwaala Anthology of Poetry by South Asians. So you can read the anthology. You can even give them to your students in case you are teaching, or even tell your friends about the anthology. And please look for future programs that we'll be organizing. And we sincerely love your support. And in turn, we would also be present at many of the readings that you will be giving in the future. So thank you all very much for being here today.
Thank you.
Namaste.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. It was wonderful to be with all of you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.